I'm Bobby Capasso. It says Roberta Capasso in my book. First, I want to thank the Cumberland County Historical Society and Barb Landis for all the help that she gave me. If you see her, give her a hug, because that girl deserves it. I love you, honey. Hug her. Anyway, and I want to thank my husband, even though he said I couldn't mention him. All right, so he's going to stand up and show you a picture, because when I was about 7 years old in the year 1960, I saw this picture in a museum, and I was one of 10 kids. My mom wanted to get rid of us for the day so she could have a brain break, and so we went to the Milwaukee Museum, which is about 10 cents a kid, and I saw this picture on display with a bunch of other Oneida Indians. They wanted the people to see what Oneida Indians look like from the Oneida Indian Reservation in Green Bay. I looked at that, and that is the only picture I remember, and it would flash back in my head through the years. Don't ask me why. I don't remember any of the other pictures. Anyway, now fast forward to the year 2000. I'm almost 50 years old and an old bag, and there I am, going to visit my sister in De Pere, Wisconsin. And on her wall is that picture. I'm telling you, I was totally shocked to see this because I had remembered it in my head. Anyway, so I said to my sister, "Where did you get that picture?" She says, "Bobby, don't you know that's our great-great-grandma, Elizabeth Hill Huff Denny?" I didn't know. So I was like floored, and I was determined to find out more. Why didn't I know about this picture? And so on. All right. So Elizabeth resisted assimilation. The government wanted her to become English or European. And because she wanted to keep her Oneida heritage, culture, and language, she had all her 10 children taken away from her. And I was like, oh my God, if anybody took my sons, man, I'd kill them. But anyway, 2 of her children, my great-grandmother Sophia Huff and my great-aunt Lily Huff, were forced to go to the Carlisle Indian Industrial Boarding School in the year July 1891. So they get there, they get their clothes taken away, they get scrubbed with a blue liquid for their lice, and have to put on these heavy woolen dresses and these hard government toe shoes. Anyway, getting to the story, because I know I only got so much time up here. After 3 days, Lily is put in a line with a bunch of other girls, and a bunch of non-Indian women come into the room and walk up and down, looking at the girls, eyeing them up to see who would look like a nice servant. And then Lily was picked out of that group after 3 days at Carlisle to be a servant in New Jersey. So much for her education at Carlisle. Sophia would finish the year. She was kept there from July 1891 until September of 1892, when she again too was lined up with a bunch of girls and checked by some non-Indian women from the country and what have you, Quakers, whatever. And she was picked to go to New Jersey, to a family called the Tomlinson family. And what they did was they took them to an outing, which was, you would work for a non-Indian family, and this was Pratt's ultimate goal of assimilation for indigenous children. So Sophia would spend 10 years with the Tomlinson family, a Quaker family, in Lindenwold, New Jersey, which used to be called Rancocas and Laurel Springs, and there were a lot of Native American kids that were servants and worked in that New Jersey area. I was lucky to have my grandmother live to 104, and she was able to share some of these stories with me along with other relatives. So Sophia became a servant with the Tomlinson family, and as a child, I couldn't understand when my grandma would say, well, that's her family now. They were Quakers. Okay. They were good to her. They taught her English. They treated her well. That was her family. I'm like, what? You know, her family's here in Wisconsin on the Oneida Indian Reservation. You know? And I was like totally shocked and couldn't understand. I was determined to find out where my great-grandmother lived for 10 years. And through the grace of God and non-Indian family whose descendants are still alive of the Tomlinson family, I found the house, and it was in 2012 I was able to go into the house and sit in a servant's quarter room that my great-grandmother would sleep in. It was tiny like her, but it was so emotional. Even as I stand here with you today, she was a servant, and that's what she was. We came to a conference here in 2014, and through the years I was always looking for if this photo that was taken on the Carlisle grounds in March of 1892, my great-grandma Sophie might be in there. But all the pictures I saw, they were small, and I can't see with a darn anyway. You see I got my glasses on. And I have the magnifying glass, and I'm trying to find her in these pictures, in this picture. By the grace of God, we came here in 2014. I don't know who put that big photo up on the second floor. I thank you, whoever you are, because he and I went up there, and I found her. That is her. And it would fit the time frame, and I'm just so grateful to God that we were able to find that. And so my husband's showing you, and okay, Sophia is allowed to return. Oh, great. Sophia is allowed to return to see her relatives in the year 1902, just for 3 months for the summer. And she went with a lady named Jemima Skinnerdor. She was allowed to go back. And then they had to return back to be servants indefinitely in New Jersey. Well, Sophia was happy to go back. They took the train. You know, she fell in love with my great-grandfather, and I'm really glad because I wouldn't be standing here in front of you. And no, I don't have his blue eyes, but maybe I have his brains. He went to Hampton and whatever. Anyway, no more BS for you guys. So, Sophia did not want to come back at the end of the summer to be a servant. She wanted to stay home. She was in love with Hyson. She said she's not going back. She told the Tomlinsons, and she told the Carlisle school. They weren't happy because she was going back to the blanket. And that term is, if you went back to the blanket, you went back to the reservation to be a dirty old Indian. Okay, so I'm glad she didn't come back. But what was interesting was my family told me that her boss, Abel Tomlinson, took a train back from New Jersey to Wisconsin to try to get Sophia to come back to New Jersey. And they wrangled for 3 days. Finally, he left. And she stayed. So with her life there, she was poor. She was a servant as they taught her to be at Carlisle for that year. I mean, for the 10 years. And that would be the rest of her life. But she didn't teach her kids Oneida because she was afraid. The fear that the government gave my relatives, my elders, it really worked a number on them where she couldn't. And so when her mother, Elizabeth Hill, who spoke fluent Oneida, would come to visit, my grandmother Millie, who I talk about in the book, couldn't. They couldn't communicate. One spoke Oneida, one spoke English. How sad, she never got to know. They never got to know each other. And that was the plan of the government too. So, anyway, I think I covered everything that I want for now, because when you write a book for 15 years, and you gotta talk about it in 15 minutes, this is the best I can do for you. Okay? Okay.